Hi, it's me, Egbert, Egburt, the owner of this radio station. I invite everyone to listen, no matter if you're young, old, black, white, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, heck, I even want real estate agents listening to my station. Yes, even Rick and Tracy. You're all welcome. Now, it's back to my Goodwill ambassadors, Brad and John.
John, talk for a minute, okay?
Yeah, sure. So, today's primary elections in St. Louis, Missouri, and throughout the entire state. You know, we don't talk about it much, Brad, but there are some alumni of the Missouri legislature who are running. A woman named Gretchen Bangert, who's a state rep. And Brad, I bring up Gretchen Bangert because if you grew up in North St. Louis County, folks will recognize the name Bangert Park. Gretchen Bangert is running for a seat in the St. Louis County Council. Now, I don't know much about St. Louis County and St. Louis County government, but it is fascinating to me that you have a member of the legislature who, after serving many years, would still want to continue public service. We also have a member of the Walton family who we referenced in A Block, Rochelle Walton Gray, is also running for a county council seat. Rochelle is a former member of the legislature, and now she wants to serve on the St. Louis County Council as well, after serving a term years ago, Brad.
John, let's talk about national politics for a minute. Okay, let's talk about the presidential race. And I don't know if I sent this to you or not. A very in-depth article that I read over the weekend. We touched on it yesterday, but a little bit more in-depth on that. It was on CNN talking about how the last almost, we're talking coming up in 3 weeks now, 21 days, that how the fate of the election has drastically changed. And I think the thing that to me is fascinating about this, if you go back a month, let's go back a month before Biden dropped out, okay? One of the concerns was that, remember, this was like a big story all the time. Well, if Biden would drop out, what's going to happen? Are we going to have Gretchen Whitmer? Are we going to have the dude from California who's Mr. Hair Product? Are we going to have all these guys, you know, and people are going like, well, we can't have Kamala because nobody would want Kamala because she's the world's word salad queen. And now it's gone from this 180 where Kamala's like, oh my God, she's just wonderful. She's the best thing since indoor plumbing. And she's so smart and she's so articulate. What happened?
Well, I mean, she's the choice now, Brad. I mean, I don't think it's rocket science. And that at the time when it appeared as though Joe Biden might still be in the race, you didn't even want to have Kamala as a viable option. And now that she is the leader of their team, she's the new skipper. It's like the Cardinals getting a new manager. A certain number of people will automatically sing the praises of whoever the new manager might be, whether they were saying the same thing 6 months ago or not.
At one time, the Democrats, not all of them, but there was a contingent of Democrats who were saying that for Joe Biden to be reelected, he had to get a new vice president. I
remember that.
Remember, and I'm going like, okay, what happened? And
I also think, too, let me interrupt, Brad. I also think, too, that we spent months watching Joe Biden deteriorate. And then when you have a woman who's able to walk up a flight of stairs, a woman who's able to walk on and off of a stage, a pair of risers, who can navigate steps on her own, and then put together a sentence or two, even if it might be word salad, she does it with passion. You can hear her voice. And I think that's quite a comparison to what we've seen the last few months from Joe Biden.
Well, I would agree 100% there. It's like a breath of fresh air. And I think the thing that's sad about this is that, once again, being a media guy, this is pretty much my entire life. I have 2 degrees in journalism, which are both worthless nowadays because nobody practices journalism anymore. Remember, go back 2 months ago, and these people who were the insiders of the White House were saying, oh my God, you won't believe we had these meetings with the cabinet gets together and Joe Biden is doing handstands on the conference table. And matter of fact, they bring in his treadmill. So he's on the treadmill when he's actually, because he wants to get his 2 miles in every morning when he's in. And oh my God, he's the sharpest guy in the room. And now you realize that they were all covering for him. It was all BS. And KJP, oh my God, the president is so involved and blah, 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 blah. I'm thinking to myself, if there was ever a time when, we talked about this briefly yesterday, this is the Wizard of Oz reference, where someone pulled back the curtain and you realized that it wasn't what you're seeing really wasn't the case, don't you think people would be a little bit more upset than they are? It's to the point. Maybe your point is that now they're going like, oh, okay, we got rid of that guy, and now
it's a relief. Yeah.
Now we can move on. It just bothers me because of the fact that so much has changed. And the interesting part of it is, I heard a very reasoned person this morning give this discussion. They said it's like that people are counting. There's like I think this is actually on Fox News. There's a countdown now. It's been, I think we're up to day 20 where Kamala has not had any kind of a presser or anything like that. In other words, everything she's done has been very prepared.
Highly scripted.
Right, highly scripted. She's on the teleprompter. There's no questions being asked by media and things like that because they don't want to get her into word salad mode where she there's something the other day where there's one little clip where, if you've seen this one, it is sort of funny because she goes through this whole crazy thing. They're on the tarmac. They're bringing back the captives that were held captive by Russia, and they're coming off the. There's something interesting about that somebody made a comment on, and I thought to myself, I never thought about that. You would think they would let the families of these people who are detained in Russia be first as they come off the plane. No, it's the president, the vice president. Like, okay, hold on a minute now. So in other words, if you're getting off the plane and you've been held captive, the one guy, 6 years or something like that, the Marine, retired Marine, I mean, you don't want to see Joe Biden. You want to see your wife and your kids. You know what I'm saying?
I do know, yeah. Well, I mean, just getting a hug from your grandpa is, unless Joe, starts sniffing your neck or something. But anyway, you got off I must have gotten you off your original topic, Brad.
She made a comment, and once again, it's one of these circular comments where she went round and round talking about, oh, Joe Biden is the great because it's diplomacy, and because of his diplomacy, we have great diplomacy, and diplomacy is the most important thing because diplomacy rules the diplomacy world. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but she went in like one of these things like, okay, that's our new presidential candidate, and then Trump, it's getting to the point where we're going to have two, and I almost hate to say this, but Trump is just shooting himself in the foot, constantly shooting himself in the foot and saying stupid stuff. And what's interesting is he's missing the opportunity because they are totally reframing Kamala. Kamala, the person who was in charge of the border but not in charge of the border, is now back in charge of the border. Have you seen this lately? They're now saying, yeah, she was in charge of the border. She is in charge of the border, and she's doing a great job. There's nobody coming across the border anymore. I mean, have you seen this now?
Yeah, I haven't seen the latest spin that things are going well for her with the border. Now, last time I caught up on this, she was never the border czar. Right? That's what I was reliably told.
But matter of fact, the famous thing on that was Axios. You're familiar with Axios, the online news site, where the lady wrote an article and saying she was never in charge of the border. She was never the border czar. And once again, through the magic of the internet, somebody went back and researched Axios and found this exact same reporter that in 2021, when Biden essentially put her in charge of the border, this lady wrote on Axios that Kamala Harris had been put in charge as the border czar. And then the Axios comes out and says, well, that's not what we meant. And they scrubbed the story. They went back and changed the story. See,
well, why not, Brad?
Once again, I mean,
but see, what's surprising to me, Brad, is that you're surprised by any of this after more than 50 years in radio. To say that you're surprised that things are going down like this is actually surprising to me.
There's 5 to 10% of the population, maybe even less than 5%, but let's be generous and say 5 to 10% of the population that pays attention to things going on every day. The majority of the population, 90 to 95%, is the people that Jay Leno used to talk to when he did jaywalking, where he'd go out on the street with a microphone, he'd do man on street, and he would stick his microphone in front of people and say, hey, who's the Secretary of the State? I don't know. What city is Minneapolis, or what state is Minneapolis in? I don't know. Who's the person that sets the interest rates for the bank? What organization is that?
Oh, I know that. It's Buzz Eccleston.
So
he sets all the interest rates in this region.
Most people, and even to the point where people that I know who are, fairly well plugged in, I had someone the other day say to me, okay, explain to me what's happening today, but this was last week. Explain to me what's happening on August 6th. And I said to him, I go, what? And they go, what are we voting on August 6th? Well, that's the primary. Okay, well, explain what that is. And I'm going, well, you got the two political parties, the Dems and the Repubs, and they put these candidates up, and there's a bunch of candidates, like, for example, Secretary of State, there's 8 candidates, and we're voting for one of those candidates, and the winner of that race goes and faces off against the opposing party in November. I think I heard Mark Cox make this comment this morning that he gave the statistic that 95 that in the state of Missouri, that on pretty much across the board in all the elections in the state of Missouri, 95% of the candidates who win today will go on to win in November. Do you believe that number?
What do you mean 95% of the candidates who win today will win? So that suggests that they're unopposed?
Well, that to the point where they're in races where let's say, like, for example, the governor's race. Okay, do you know this because you follow this? Who are the people running for besides Crystal Quaid? Who's running for governor on the Democratic side?
Mike Hamra. So I think a more accurate way to say that is that 95% of the races will be uncompetitive.
Well,
it would be inaccurate to say 90 because Crystal Quaid, if she wins the Democratic primary, she will not win. But most races in Missouri are indeed contested, even if they're not competitive.
Well, no, but
the point is taken, Brad.
Yeah, the point: 95% of the people that win today will become whatever they are because the fact that either they're unopposed or they have a candidate who is, like, once again, it would be like somebody winning. The chances of a Republican winning any job in the city of St. Louis are probably slim and none.
Right.
About as good a chance of me having a date with Tawny Katane, especially since she's not alive anymore, and the chances the chances of that are zero now.
Your chances of her saying no have decreased dramatically.
Right, exactly. Okay, I guess it's just frustrating to me that once again the spin doctors and all these guys, all these people that all the consultants that say, hey, you need more yard signs. It reminds me of we could do a great Saturday Night Live bit instead of more cowbell, more yard signs, more yard signs.
Yeah.
Well, there's a yard sign every 2 feet. More yard signs, more yard signs. Okay, and I'm going to throw you one that you're going to really roll your eyes on when I tell you this. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
The big thing, at least in St. Charles County, is the 4x8s. Okay, the 18 by 24 yard signs, the small yard signs. The big are the 4 foot by 8 foot ones, and they put those up with T-posts. You know what a T-post is?
I do know what a T-post is.
Okay, you get one of those slide hammers and you whack it into the ground. Okay. The problem with that is that guess what's in the ground nowadays? All sorts of stuff: gas lines, electric lines, fiber optic lines, and stuff like that. I wondered during the election cycle how many outages there are from candidates going out. And once again, if they were doing it properly, they would call 811, Missouri One Call, and say, hey, I'm going to put a yard sign up at the corner of Central School and Mid-Rivers Mall Drive. Can you mark that area for me so I don't put my T-post through somebody's fiber optic cable? But guess what? Nobody does that. And once again, here are the people that are like, oh, we're law-abiding citizens. No, you're not, because of the fact that you've just violated the law because you're making and people will go like, well, now hold on a minute now. Those utilities have to be down so many feet. Guess what? Not all of them are. They're supposed to be down, I think, a minimum of 18 inches or 2 feet. But trust me when I say this, because of the fact that I had a situation where I almost got electrocuted because of the fact that I did call One Call on something I was working on, and I did have the area marked, and they missed one of the lines, electric line, a 240 volt electric line, which was only down 4 inches. And
holy cow!
I hit it with my shovel, and I thought to myself, what was that? And I literally got on my hands and knees, and I'm digging around with my hand, and I go, oh, crap, it's an electric line. And it was live, because I got this little gizmo that I use that, you can hold up. It's got a little light on it that tells you if, a circuit's energized, if for safety things. I go like, oh, my God, this thing's live. And I actually scraped a little bit of the insulation off to the point now where none of the copper showed up. But it was only 4 inches underground, and once again they missed it. And this was not something that was installed by Joe. This was not in somebody's backyard. This was on a commercial installation where this was actually done, I believe, by Ameren. Ameren put this in and didn't do it right. And once again, people are putting these signs up. Am I being a nerd about this or what?
No, I think, first of all, it shows that we need more solar power and we need more solar panels, because I think that would be a solution to underground lines. Secondly, I think what's important is I think this is a good thing for your September shiny object. Could be a public awareness campaign about the dangers of T-posts and electrical lines, Brad.
You know what? There are stupid PSAs running on radio stations that are worse than that. And one last thing, we'll tease this if you want to talk about it a little bit more. Hawley is really going after this deal with the Secret Service thing. And
yeah, he is, isn't he? Was he on one of your favorite radio shows?
Well, no. What's interesting? What came out yesterday, which he uncovered?
What's that?
There were several of the Secret Service agents on the detail for Trump during the assassination attempt who were not Secret Service agents. What do you mean? They were DHS people. They were not Secret Service agents because they're so short of Secret Service agents. They just brought in DHS people, and once again, there's a difference. And I'm going like, I don't believe this. I mean, and even to the point where Trump supposedly complained about the fact that the lead agent on this detail, he knows this person. And he claims, there's reports that before he was, the thing even went down, before he was shot, that he complained that this person was incompetent. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm thinking to myself after the fact, that guy that was ahead of my detail was incompetent. Now he says that. But doesn't that spook you a little bit that we look at this agency, this vaunted Secret Service agency, and we look at this and we go like, okay, it's not what we thought. We thought these guys were the creme de la creme de la creme de la creme de la creme, and it turns out that, not so much. They were people that could...
I think so, and I think we would have assumed, a year ago that somebody would be able to holster a gun. And we would assume that you would cover a man taller than 6 feet with agents that are taller than 6 feet.
You would think that, wouldn't you, John?
But you know what? You are on record as not appreciating height and gun skill diversity. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised that you're disappointed by that, Brad.
John, if you're hiring someone who's going to do fire protection for you, wouldn't you at least hope that they knew how to use a fire extinguisher?
No, I want somebody who's afraid of fire because it would be a growth opportunity for them, Brad.
Okay.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?